Hi, everybody. Now that we paused and took a few extra days to factor, I'm hoping today's factor completely and quadratic equations is going to go smooth. So I'm going to work on these next few questions with you and show you a few little tricks on how to always get yourself the right answer, especially when you're looking at multiple choice. Okay, so if you notice in the first question, it says factor completely, okay? So that means in factor completely, you're factoring at least twice, more than once. And what is always the first thing you're going to look for? Look to make sure you have a GCF. So when you look at a 3 and an 18, there is a greatest common factor. They all have a 3 in common, okay? Now, do they all have an x in common? They don't. So you can't take out an x. So now I open up my parenthesis, and to help me get my answer, I'm going to divide each of these by 3. When I divide by 3, the 3's divide out, and I get x squared. The 3's divide out, and I just get minus x. And negative 18 divided by 3 is minus 6. Okay. Now, that shouldn't be a choice. It is. If everybody looks, number 1 is a choice. So be careful. But that is not factored completely. Completely means you have to factor at least twice. So make sure you don't just stop there. This, inside these parentheses, okay, you have to know, is a trinomial. That means you're going to ask yourself what multiplies to negative 6 and adds to, now there's no number there. What number is that? That's really a negative 1. So you're asking yourself what multiplies to negative 6 and adds to negative 1. And that would be negative 3 and positive 2. So notice my 3 comes down. I open up my 2 sets of parentheses for my trinomial. And I have an x minus 3 in one and an x plus 2 in the other. This should be the answer you're looking for, which is choice 2. Now, be careful. Number 1 would be equivalent, but it's just not factored completely. So again, you want to be careful, because if I were to go to the calculator and I were to type my original equation, okay, my 3x squared minus 3x minus 18, right? So there's our parabola. If I now type my answer, which was 3 parentheses x minus 3, and my other parenthesis, which is x plus 2, you should see only one graph. You see that they completely overlapped. Okay, so that should be your answer. Now, I'm just curious if you guys also typed in that original number 1 choice, 3x squared minus x minus 6. Be careful. That is also going to be equivalent. The hard thing to understand is that number choice 1, even though it is equivalent, it isn't factored completely. So make sure this is the number 1 is equivalent, but it's not factored completely. Your answer would have to be choice 2. Okay? Okay, let's try another one. Look at the next one, number 2. Again, it tells you factor completely. So immediately you're going to factor at least 2 times. Okay? So when you look at 2y squared plus 12y minus 54, your 2, your 12, and your 54, you know that you're going to take out a GCF of 2. So if I pull out a 2, you can't pull out a y. They don't all have a y. So when I divide each of these by 2, I would get y squared plus 6y minus 27. And once again, you could factor that again. It's a trinomial. What multiplies to negative 27 and adds to 6? It's got to either be negative 3 and 9 or 3 and negative 9. Which 2 would add to a positive 6? You want the 9 to be positive. Negative 3 and positive 9. So you're going to have your y minus 3 and y plus 9. So you're going to look for that choice. GCF of 2, here it is, right in number 1. Y plus 9, it's okay if those terms are interchanged as long as your 9 has the positive and the 3 has the negative. So if you notice, if I go back here, okay, and I clear everything out and I write my equation, I'm going to use x instead of y. 2x squared plus 12x minus 54. Okay. And then I'm going to use the answer, which was number 1, 2. I'm going to use x plus 9 and x minus 3. And there they are. They overlap. I know that has to be my answer. I know I factored correctly. Again, you have to check it in the calculator. That will no doubt get you the correct answer. Now, I want you to immediately take note of what is so different in number 3. Does everybody look at number 1 and number 2 and notice number 1 is an expression? This is an expression. When you're being asked to factor, there's no equal sign, it's an expression. Number 2 is also just an expression, where all of a sudden, number 3, we're looking at an equation. Okay, so here is where you're still going to factor, but you're going to take that one extra step. So watch, when you're looking for a solution, you remember your solution, another word for a solution is called a root. So when I look at x squared minus 6x equals 0, the first thing I'm asking myself is it in standard form? Okay, standard form looks like this: ax squared plus bx plus c equals 0. This is in standard form. So step 2, you're going to factor. So does it have a GCF? That's always your first question. It does. They both have an x in common. Pull out my x. Divide each of these by that x. You would have an x squared divided by x is x, minus 6, because the x's divide out, equals 0. And here is where you're going to now, once you have it factored, I'm going to say t it up. Set up a little t. Only when it's equal to 0 do you now set each factor equal to 0. Now here's the best part. This is already one of your answers. X is 0. X minus 6 equals 0. You have to now solve that little mini equation. If I want to get x by itself, all you need to do is take this 6, use the inverse, which is addition, and move it to the other side. What's 0 plus 6? 6. So you have two answers. Okay, after you then tee it up, you solve each factor. So your answers are 0 and 6. Choice 3. Now watch how easy this is going to be when you put this in the calculator. Let's say you can't do any of that, but it's a multiple choice. If I go into the calculator and I type, go calc, type x squared minus 6x, you don't even need, I hate this color, you don't even need equals 0, okay? So listen to me. In order to find the solutions or the roots, it's where your graph crosses the x-axis. Look right there. Everybody see that? It says root and y-intercept. Where is it hitting? It's hitting actually the x and the y-axis. The root is at 0. Look at this one. Where is the other root? At 6. So you know your roots are right on the x-axis at 0 and 6. So I want you to take note, okay? In the calculator, look for root. And that's where the graph crosses your x-axis, okay? So literally, I'm going to just show you the next question without even doing anything. If I use number 4, and instead of m, I'm going to type in x, okay? So watch. So instead of m squared, I'm going x squared. Instead of minus 3m, I'm doing minus 3x minus 10, okay? Without even doing a thing, everybody look here. You see the root? -2. You see the other root? 5. Done. That's your answer. You're looking for, I'm going to put it over here, -2 and +5. Everybody see that? -2 and +5. Here they are, -2, +5. It's your answer. Now I'm going to prove it to you. This example in number 4 is 1, 2, 3 terms. I'm going to go new color. This is a trinomial. It's meaning, ask yourself what multiplies to -10 and adds to -3. That's easy. It's -5 and +2. So I want you to take note. If I were to factor this, I'd say m minus 5 and m plus 2 equals 0. This line right here are the factors. These are called the factors. But when I set up my t and I set each of these, this is what you have to do, set them equal to 0, and then you solve each mini equation. So on this side, I quick add 5 to both sides. M equals 5. Remember back from when I first taught you this a few days ago? Notice the sign up here, negative. The sign here, positive. They're always opposite. Here, this is positive, which means you should turn out with a negative answer. And when you minus 2 from both sides, m equals 0 minus 2 is -2. And there is where we get, right here, -2 and 5. Whatever way you want to do it is fine. If it's a multiple choice, you could put it straight into the calculator. If it is not multiple choice, you have to show the work. So I'm going to show you another one with the work, but I'll prove it with the calculator. This, once again, is a trinomial. Okay? So you are going to ask yourself what multiplies to -12 and adds to -4. -6 and +2. So I'm going to open up. I know one of them has to be x minus 6. My other one has to be x plus 2. Set it equal to 0. So immediately, if my factors, these are my factors. If my factors are -6 and +2, then my solutions or roots are going to be the opposite. So if x minus 6 equals 0 and I add 6 to both sides, x equals +6. This is called a solution. That's what they want, a solution. If I take x plus 2 and set it equal to 0, but I do the inverse, I move it to the other side to get what x equals, I get -2. Again, that's called a solution. It's also called a root. Solution or root. So your answer should be +6 and -2, which is choice 3. Now I'll prove it to you. In the calculator, if I get rid of the last question and I type x squared minus 4x minus 12, look where the graph hits the x-axis. -2, +6. You have your answers instantly. -2, +6. Okay, I'm going to go to the next one. So let me just say this to you. In your next question, it's a little bit more difficult because your equation is not in standard form. So if I go right to the calculator and I type exactly what I see, I'm going to get rid of this, and I'm going to type x squared equals 16x minus 28. Okay? And here it is. I'm going to see my roots, +2 and +14. That's my answer. Immediately, 2 and 14, right here. I didn't have to do a thing. But now for me to prove it to you, if I took x squared equals 16x minus 28, and it's not equal to 0, you have to take these two terms and move them to the other side. So if I subtract 16x, okay, watch what happens. I have now x squared minus 16x equals negative 28. Still doesn't equal 0. So I'm going to do it again. The inverse of minus 28, add 28 to this side. Gone. So now I have x squared, no like terms here, everything is separate. X squared minus 16x plus 28 equals 0. So I'm going to bring it up here. X squared minus 16x plus 28 equals 0 is now ready to factor. What multiplies to 28 and adds to negative 16? Negative 2 and negative 14. So when I put those in, x minus 2 and x minus 14, they multiply to positive 28. They add to negative 16. Set up my t. Set up each factor. If it's negative, I'm going to add 2 to both sides, and I get a positive 2. Same thing on this side. Add 14 to both sides. I get x equals 14. And either way you do it, calculator or not, 2 and 14 are your answer. Okay, so the calculator is amazing. It is going to tell you everything you need to know. Let's go to the next one. It's a little bit more difficult. Okay, so look at this next question. A lot of kids are going to want to immediately multiply 3 times negative 24 because that 3 is potentially a GCF. Is it a GCF? No. Does 3 go into 34? No. So there really is no GCF. Actually, you have to multiply 3 times negative 24, okay? So 3 times negative 24 is going to be negative 72 off to the side, okay? Negative 72 off to the side. So now here is what I call split. Okay, it looks like I can't spell. Let's do that again. Split the middle. Now, this is going to be a lot of work, so I'm going to tell you something right now. Before you start going crazy, I want you to go to the calculator. I am going to type this in 3x squared. I'm going to clear this out. I'm going to get my answer immediately. 3x squared minus 34x minus 24. You don't even need the equal 0. Hit enter. Here it is. Pull, stretch, touch. Now look at that root. Negative 0.66666666, which is negative 2/3, and 12. Those should be your answer. Positive 12, negative 2/3. This has got to be it. So now I'll prove to you. Let's start thinking of numbers that multiply to 72. 72 and 2 and 36 multiply to 72, but now it's negative. So let's just think of 2 and negative 36, or negative 2 and positive 36. Which of those would add to negative 34? That would be this first choice. So in a split the middle, because there was no GCF, 3 didn't go into 34, I am going to immediately keep my first term. I'm going to split negative 34x into these two numbers. I'm going to put the negative 36x first, and I'm going to put the 2x second. The order of those doesn't matter. And then I'm going to bring down my last term. Don't forget my equals 0. So this turns into grouping. The GCF between the first two is 3x. And if I divide each of these by 3x, I get x minus 12. And the GCF here is positive 2. Whatever this sign is, it has to be the sign of the GCF. Divide both by 2, and I get x minus 12. Now, I know I did it right because this one is 3x plus 2, and the pair that matches is x minus 12. When I set up a t, 3x plus 2 equals 0. I have to minus 2 from both sides. So 3x equals negative 2. Now, if 3x equals negative 2, I haven't solved for x yet. To get x by itself, divide by 3. And you get this whole fraction, negative 2/3. That's a solution. On the other side, way easier. To get x by itself, add 12. So x equals 12. And that's how you algebraically get your answers. Okay? All right. We're down to 2 more. In this next one, I'm going to go new color. Again, I can go to the calculator and get my answer instantly. So I'm going to prove it to you. Okay? Thank God for multiple choice. We have 2x squared minus 8x. So there's a GCF there. Here are your two roots, 0 and 4. It's my answers. I know my answers instantly. 0 and 4 have to be my solutions. It's got to be choice 4. So let's prove it. If I have 2x squared minus 8x, there's actually a GCF. I hope you all see that the GCF is 2x. So if I divide each of these by 2x, I have x minus 4 left in parentheses. And if I tee them off, and I set 2x equals 0 and x minus 4 equals 0, to get x by itself, divide both sides by 2, so x equals 0. 0 divided by 2, if you go to the calculator, is 0. Here, do the opposite. Add 4, so x equals positive 4, and that is the proof that I get 0 and 4 as my answer. Okay, last one. X squared minus 9 equals 0. Again, you don't even need that equals 0. When it's in standard form, literally just do x squared minus 9. It's going to give me my answers. Look where I'm touching. Touch those points. They're called roots or solutions. One root is at negative 3, where the graph hits the x-axis. The other one's at positive 3. So there are two solutions, negative 3 and positive 3. Now, there was no multiple choice here, so let me show you how you're going to show your answer. Does anybody know what type of factoring x squared minus 9 is? Hopefully, you're all saying difference of two perfect squares. And immediately, you're going to take the square root of both. What's the square root of x squared? X. What's the square root of 9? 3. Always, one's a plus, one's a minus. The order of those doesn't matter. I always set it equal to 0 because notice, it's an equation. It's not just an expression. So whenever it's an equation and it's equal to something, that's when you're going to set up your t and solve each factor. Hold on 1 second, Lucy. Mommy's coming. Hold on. Okay, so now I have to subtract 3 from this side, add 3 to this side. So on this side, I get x equals negative 3. One of your solutions. On this side, I get x equals positive 3. And there's your negative 3 and positive 3. Okay, I have to go feed Lucy. Listen, this is one of your assignments, and I'm going to give you, I think, maybe one other assignment, but it won't be due till Monday because I want you guys to enjoy your weekend. It's the holiday weekend. Happy Easter, happy Passover, whatever you celebrate. I miss you guys terribly, and hopefully we'll see each other soon. Okay, bye.